Hello, my fellow Americans. As promised, here's the third video for the month. And also, as promised, this will not be a policies video. As the change of pace for today, we're going to talk about the generations in this country. So, chiefly the generations that will be old enough to vote in 2024. Now, as far as I know, there are 7 generations alive right now in the U.S. The greatest generation, the silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, Generation Y, millennials, and Generation Z, and Gen Alpha. At least I believe that's what they're calling, but not important. So, generations are a weird thing to deal with, because lines are kind of blurry. How can you really group people based just on this year to this year? Well, the years that are right at the beginnings and the ends of generations, they're going to kind of blur one generation to another. So, talking about people as a generation is kind of like, But for the sake of things, since there are big differences across generations in the broad spectrum, we're going to address that a little, and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to start right at the top, the greatest generation. Now, most people know why they're called the greatest generation. The things that went on that made them so great. The troubles they endured with the World Wars and the Great Depression, and there are not a lot of people from the greatest generation left. And I wish them the best making it to 2024 and beyond that. Outlive me. I mean, your generation's earned it, right? But circling back to my main points here, I'm going to, in this video, give each generation a reason to vote for me, more or less. And is it a good reason? I think so. Maybe not. Maybe you think it's a terrible reason. But getting back to it, the greatest generation. You led the country through a lot of dark stuff. And even though we've been through that dark stuff, the country's kind of fallen to trash. We ignored your legacy. We've let it go. And part of that is your generation included. Because you've been old enough to vote this entire time for years. And maybe you've fallen silent because of policies, because it's been harder to vote. And maybe you're not getting out to vote because you just can't do it like you used to. And there's a small chance that you won't be around to vote in 2024. But I'm asking you, between now and then, if you are around, vote. Vote for change. Prove that you're the greatest generation again. Do that for the younger generations. Leave behind the legacy that you started so many years ago. Because if you don't help with that, it all means nothing. Now, moving on to the silent generation. This generation's also getting quite up there in age. And if I had to say something, is the silent generation, where does that come from? Is it because you're silent and you haven't spoke up and done anything effective in this country and you let the generations before and the generations after you do everything? Is it because you silently do everything from the shadows? Is it because some dummy named it and was just like, well, once you follow up the greatest generation, who are you to say anything to them? You better just be silent. I don't know. I quite frankly don't care, because like I said, generations really just kind of don't mean anything. But since the point of this is to specifically target each one, we're going there. So, if you're silent, haven't you been silent long enough? You've let a handful of people in your generation make major decisions in this country and steer this country in terrible directions. Haven't you all been silent long enough? Shouldn't you get out, vote, if you still are capable? On to probably the most infamous of the generations, the baby boomers. Now, baby boomers have a really, really bad reputation with younger generations. How do I know this? Because I'm a member of the millennials, Gen Y. My generation, we don't like boomers in general. Is it fair? Absolutely not. Is it kind of ageist? Yes, it really is. Does my generation have our reasons? Yeah, we do. Are they justifiable? No, you can't hate a whole generation because of the bad apples. The same way you can't hate any other given selection of people based on the single uniting factor they have, short of that uniting factor being a belief that they could absolutely change. But the thing is, baby boomers have such a bad name primarily because of the way they act towards the younger generations. And it's not even just baby boomers, it's those older than them. Sometimes it's those younger than them. And baby boomers just end up on the shit end of the stick of it because they're right in the middle. We're averaging. And like I said, generations don't really mean anything to people my age. We look at people that are older than us, and if they're older than Generation X, even some old Gen Xers, we're like, oh, they're all baby boomers. Oh yeah, baby boomers probably range from like their 50s to their freaking 90s for younger people. Just because generations don't mean anything to us. You're talking to a wall for the most part. So that's how baby boomers end up with the bad name. But they end up with the real bad name. Does everybody remember OK Boomer? There was people that were all like, oh, that should be hate speak. Just because we just say OK Boomer. We got to the point, our generations, the younger generations, where we'd hear stuff over and over and over about how we're so trash at everything and how none of us want to work and how we're all lazy and, oh, your generation's spoiled because you always got participation trophies. And at a certain point, we would just take it. And then when we try and speak up, we'd just be talked over. The older generations would just talk over us like we had nothing to say. Like what we had to say wasn't even important. So at a certain point, instead of trying to defend ourselves, we were just like, you know what, the hell with it. It's not even worth our time. So we just started dropping, OK Boomer. Even if you're not a baby boomer, you're getting the OK Boomer. Because we were tired of your crap. We were tired of being pushed around and shoved down and talked down upon and talked over, and any chance we had to defend ourselves just being spit at. Any defense we had, oh no, that's not the way it is. Oh, but that is the way it is. You're just yeah, we're gonna hold the tongue today, maybe. Just bite it. But I'm getting a little sidetracked here. Younger generations look and generalize to baby boomers as terrible. They are a running joke to the younger generations. And honestly, the generation itself isn't doing itself any favors either. It's very generalized, and it is kind of ageist. But for the most part, my interactions, aside from like people that are generally close, like parents' friends, my own family, and even some of my own family are not there. But general interactions with baby boomers, actual baby boomers, is not pleasant for younger generations. Like I said, we get talked down upon. So we snap back. Because that's what the younger generations do. Because we're tired of the crap. But my whole point is, don't you baby boomers want to be known for something better than the butt end of the joke for generations Y and Z? Don't you want people to look at your generation sometime in the future, and instead of saying, wow, that generation was a bunch of assholes, even if it wasn't all because of your generation, and some of it was younger people and older people, and it was just because it got grouped in with you by my generation and the generations younger than me. Don't you want people not to go, oh, what a bunch of assholes, and instead say, look, they did have a positive change. They got some shit, but that generation really turned it around and helped vote for somebody who is going to bring change and help change this country and help leave a legacy instead of just continuing down the path we're on. Don't you want the younger generations to, instead of making jokes about your generation, instead of saying, okay, boomer, don't you want some semblance of the respect that you demand almost? Don't you want the younger generations to look at you and respect you the way that you were taught to respect the older generations? You want that, you demand that, but you haven't earned that. And now a lot of people that are baby boomers or older are going to look at that and go, we haven't earned the respect. Oh, that's funny coming from somebody from your generation. My generation hasn't had the chance to earn our respect. Like I said, we've been shot down at every point and every opportunity we've had. We've been turned down and talked down upon and thrown away like trash generations. Your generation has had a chance and you've done nothing with it. Turn that around. Vote for change. Even if that change isn't me. Vote for change instead of following suit. Moving on. Generation X. Generation X, I can remember growing up in the 90s, there was the commercials on that were like, Generation X, it means nothing. No one. We're so forgotten. Oh, look at us, we're rebels. And I can remember growing up, like looking at Generation X, I was always like, oh my God, they're so cool. Oh, I wish I could be part of Generation X. I'm just part of whatever the next generation is. Not even thinking about the fact that it's Y, or someday we were going to come to be called millennials. Just, Generation X is so cool. Everything about Generation X was cool as a child growing up. They were made out to be so awesome. And there was so much potential and so much hope for Generation X. And they wanted to change things and they wanted to see the world different. And they saw what was going on, the problems, and they wanted to change those problems and make the world better. And then you know what happened? Generation X fell in line just like every other generation. All the hope and potential Generation X had, thrown out the window. Look at Congress. The Senate, the House. Look at leaders across this country in political aspects as well as other aspects. The age range on leaders in this country are not Generation X. The generation that right now should be grabbing this country by the nards and leading it. Generation X should be the ones leading this country right now. It's their time. This is the time when any other time in U.S. history, a generation in that age range would be the ones in Congress and in the House and the ones setting the policies and leading the country and dictating how things go. But Generation X is in no way in charge in this country. The major federal leaders in this country, the average age is in their 70s. While the average American is in their 30s. Generation X hasn't done anything politically. All the hope and potential they had, they've done nothing with it. They've just fallen into the same bad habits as those before them. Oh, this is the way things are. This is the way they'll always be. There's no changing it, so why even try? Might as well vote for a Democrat or Republican. Nobody else ever stands a chance of winning. What happened to the generation that wanted to change things? What happened to the generation who when I was growing up, were like, yeah, we're so badass, we're rebels, we're gonna change everything? What happened to that generation? How did they go from, we're gonna change everything and make a difference, to nothing can be changed? No point in trying. So I'm calling upon Generation X. Do something. Make the stand you were so infamous for in the 90s. Speak up to the older generations. Tell them no more. Vote the old politicians out, and that's ageist. Vote the bad politicians out. Because not all old politicians are bad. Yeah, they're old. but that doesn't mean they're bad. Some of them actually are with the modern times, want to see change. And the same way with some younger politicians. There are some younger politicians who are like, yeah, things need to go back to the way they were in the 1950s. They were so great. The only thing great about the 1950s was that people could come straight out of high school, get a job, one spouse work that job the rest of their lives and support a family, have a house, have a car. That was the only good thing in the 1950s. There's a lot of regressive shit in the 1950s, and bringing that back is not a good thing for this nation. But I'm getting sidetracked there. Vote the bad politicians out. Generation X, step up. Finally have your stand. Say what needs to be said as a generation and vote. Now, moving on to my generation, the millennials. And most of us hate that term because it's so negatively connotized, the same way boomer is. Generation Y, I prefer to call myself. Not because I hate the term millennial. I kind of do, not for the negativity about it, but like, I grew up in the 90s. Yeah, I was in high school in the 2000s and stuff. Like, that's when I graduated. I was growing around that time. But, like, I wasn't a millennial. Give that term to the people born in 2000. Like, they're millennial. Like, yeah. But anyways, I like Y. I like calling myself Generation Y because it adds a certain connotation. Why? We are the generation that questions stuff. And that's why a lot of the older generations hate us, realistically. We live up to our letter to a T. We question things. Why are things like this? Why do they have to be like it? Why can't they change? Why is it that things are done a certain way and we can't do it differently? My generation questions that, but we are slowly falling into the same bad trend as Generation X, as the boomers. My generation is following into that, oh, well, I guess things are the way they are, and that's all they'll be. Question things. Go back to your roots. Be the generation who asks, why are things like this? Why can't they be changed? Why is it only a Democrat or a Republican can win? Why can't I, an independent, win? And you know the answer to that? I absolutely can win. And I will win. But only if I have the support. Only if people actually vote for me. Instead of questioning, whoa, why is it that it's this way? Why change? Why don't we see it done? Why don't we see it changed? Why don't we bring the change we want? Instead of just letting things roll out. Instead of just going, well, if I vote for an independent candidate, then that's one less vote for the candidate from my party, and that means the other party's going to win. That is a terrible, terrible thinking ideology. Because, you know, if everybody thinks like that, we're going to be stuck in this two-party system forever. But if everybody thinks, if I vote for this man, if I vote for Adam Patsy, he can win. And you know, that is in fact the truth. If I get the votes, I can win. I don't need a party. I don't need hundreds of millions of dollars to dump on campaigning. All I need is support from the American people. All I need is for people to believe in me. And if you believe in me, I will prove that it was not misplaced belief. But I'm getting a little sidetracked, as I'm so infamous for at this point. Generation Y. Again. Why aren't you questioning things? Why aren't you seeing things done? Why aren't you voting for the change that you want? I know you want things. I'm part of your generation, for Christ's sake. I know you look around and you see things in this country and in the world that disgust you. And you look and you question, are my children going to have a country and a world? Are my grandchildren going to have a country and a world? Am I going to have a country and a world even? I know you look around and see what's going on, what's happening, and you want that change, and you crave for that change, and you don't want to fall into the system that's been built to slam you down and hold against you. I know you look and you go, jobs don't pay enough. I have to work twice as hard as my father to get to the same place. I work 2 jobs. My wife has to work 2 jobs, and we can barely support our family. I know that stuff goes on in this country. I know you look around and go, I'll never own a home. I know because I'm one of you. And I know you want to see that changed. And I also know it is possible. We can have things the way they used to be in that regard. We can go back to somebody working a single job and supporting their family. But we have to stop things going the way they are. We can't continue to let companies take advantage of its workers. Oh, but the price of things will go up if we start forcing companies to actually treat people like human beings. The price of things is going up anyways. Get with the fucking picture. Things are not getting better. They are getting progressively worse, and we are not taking any steps to keep up. We're just letting things cost more and more and more and not paying anybody anymore. We're going in one direction for pay and the other direction for benefits of a company and profit. We've gotten to the point where some states right now, people don't want to work. Do you blame them? Who would want to work a shit job for shit pay? But we've gotten to the point where states are going, well, maybe it's okay for children to work till 11 p.m. Looking at you, Wisconsin. And so we've hit the point where we can't get adults to work because nobody wants to work for that crappy pay that, you know, who wants to go and kill themselves for a company and then come home and not even make ends meet? So we've hit the point where we're like, well, children, we can exploit children. Yeah. There's a famous quote that child labor laws only exist because if they didn't, companies would take advantage of children. And we're hitting the point in this country where we're like, maybe we got to do that. Maybe we got to let them work. It's a terribly dark path to head down. And yeah, letting school-age children work to 11, that seems small. But you know, it's the tiny, small steps that build up. Little things that people just go, oh, that's not so bad. Oh, that's not so bad. And before you know it, all those, that's not so bad. You're at a step where if it had initially jumped from here to here, people would go, Jesus, we can't do that. That's terrible. But you've just incrementally built there, and you're like, you know, it's not that much worse than this. We are headed down a dark path in many, many regards, and we need to change that. And Generation Y, it is coming to be your time. Generation X, they blew it. They had their chance. They did nothing with it. It is our time. Generation Y. And we have to be the leaders of the future. We have to change this country and make sure there is a country for Generation Z, Alpha, Beta, whatever generations come after that. We need to make sure there's a future in this nation for them. We need to put an end to the way things are and make it better. Now moving on. Generation Z. Generation Z, Zoomers, as they're called sometimes. I love them. They're fun. They're the future. And if my generation blows it, which God, I hope we don't, then I really hope that the Zoomers are as independent and crazy and reluctant and rebellious as they come across. I really hope if my generation screws the pooch, that they can step in and go, no, we're going to be the ones to stop it. I have so much faith in you, Generation Z. You are the future. My generation's time is now. Your generation is the future. And as such, shouldn't your generation be setting up to make sure there is a future? Shouldn't you be deciding what happens? Now, a lot of you are not old enough to vote at this exact time. But in 2024, when I am running for president, you will be old enough to vote. And there'll still be some of you who aren't, but a good majority of you will. And so I'm calling on you. I'm calling on Generation Z. The generation will be the youngest generation who is old enough to vote for me. I'm calling on you to lead the charge into the future, to guarantee your own success by instead of following suit of all those ahead of you. Be the ones who say enough is enough and vote for change. Be the ones who say, no, I'm not going to vote for one of the two parties. Be the ones who say any candidate can win if they have the support. Be the generation who says enough is enough. Generation Z, I'm looking at you. The only way I will win this election is with your generation's support. I need the young vote. The young vote is the key to young victories. And yes, I might be from the generation older than you. And I might not be entirely with some of the ideals you have. But would you rather have some 80-something lead this country, or somebody who's 40 and with the times and knows how things are changing and knows what it's like to grow up now and sees around them and sees all the shit and wants it changed? Generation Z, your votes will decide the future of this country, but only if you vote. And this applies to Generation Z more than any other generation. It also applies to my generation, Generation Y. It also applies to X. It applies to all generations because 20% of the people in this country vote on average. 20% decide for the other 80% how this country is going to be led. And a lot of that 80% that doesn't vote is the young vote. Young voters don't turn out. They'll not vote and then complain about how some old guy's in charge. Change that. Vote. Show up and vote. Generation Z, this is a call out to you. You can do this. You can determine the future. You can decide enough is enough. You can put an end to the two-party system. And I can help you do that. With your support, we can end the two-party system. We can show them that anybody, given the convictions, the dedication, and the support, can become president. We can show them that when somebody is in that position and says, no, we're not putting up with any shit, this country can be changed in a positive direction. And now it will take more than just me. You need to look around at other votes. You need to take a look at every election and decide who is the best candidate. Not because of what symbol they carry, not because of the prereq of Dem or Repub, but what they stand for, who they are, what they want for this country, and how they will lead. We need to vote in every election. Even if elected president, I can't do it on my own. The president's powers are limited. We have checks and balances for a reason. It's so one person cannot become too powerful. And that is a damn good thing, since nobody should be able to become too powerful in this country. But that also means no matter how good my intent is, no matter how hard I promise to bring change, I won't be able to do it without some semblance of support from the House, the Senate. So when you look at that, look at all the leaders that do terrible things in both those positions and get rid of them. Vote for people who will bring change. Vote for people who will help positively impact this country. Make it easier so if you do choose to vote for me, if you do say Adam Patsy is my president, that I will be able to say, I want to do this. And I won't have a bunch of people that want to do the opposite just standing in the way of change. Get rid of them. Bring in people who want change, new blood. People who want to see a future for this country and the world. Put them in positions of power too, so that it is not an uphill battle if I get elected. So that I can say, we're going to do this. And I can have people who say, we absolutely are. Instead of, we're going to do this. Nope, gonna do the opposite. I can't do this alone. Even if I wanted to, I absolutely can't. I need a House and Senate that will support me. And the ones we have right now absolutely will not. With the people in power right now, all getting me elected will do is make some really powerful enemies. And maybe I could throw an executive order at something, even if I know they're going to shut it down, which they absolutely should, if I don't have that power. I can throw an executive order at it, and then I can play, well, the ball's in their court now. I tried. I don't want to be that president. I want to be the president who just says, well, I tried. I want to be the president who says, I came and I did. I made the changes I promised. But I will need help with that. I will need support across the board. And there will absolutely need to be some politicians that get voted the hell out. And that, again, comes back to you, Generation Z. You need to step up. You need to be the generation who shows up and who votes. You need to be the ones that break the mold. And when they look back on this point in U.S. history, they need to go, thank God the young vote turned out. Thank God the young vote finally showed up when they still had their hopes and dreams intact, before this country crushed them and sucked it all out of them. Thank God they showed up to vote for change. Because that's what happens. This country drains it out of you. It beats you and it beats you and it beats you until you're submissive. Until you say, we can't do anything. This is the way it is. This is the way it's always going to be. That's what this country does. It beats you into saying there's no point in trying because we can't do anything. And that's sickening because we absolutely can. We can change things. We can make this country better, but we have to take it. And I don't mean take it violently, because that's not going to answer anything. I mean take it with the elections. Take it to them every chance you get. Vote. Vote for good people. Vote for good change. Just vote. Get rid of the people holding this country back. The regressives who want to see things go back to the 1950s. There's a lot of bad shit from the 1950s. There's a lot of inequality. People could treat other people really shitty just because of who they were in comparison. And that's all fucked up. We don't want that back. We are equals. This is the year 2021. We don't want the 1950s. The only thing we want from that era is the way people could actually have families and lives. We want to be able to work a single job and come home and have time with our family. We want to be able to have a house and cars and a fucking life. That's what we want from that era. But when people talk about bringing the good old years back, they don't mean the shit from those times that was actually good. They mean all the terrible, hateful, dirty stuff. They don't mean the good aspects. And don't let them fool you. They'll talk about the good old years. But the good old years, they don't exist. The past is twisted in the minds of people. Everything is seen from their own perspective and glorified in ways that didn't actually exist. We're in the year 2021. Things can only get better, but only if we make it so. We have the potential to be great. We have the potential to be the #1 nation in the world. Because right now, we're absolutely not. Look at statistics. Check it all. Education, pay, health benefits. Check across the board. The U.S. is not #1 in good categories. We can change that. Generation Z, you can change that. You are the future. Don't fail us the same way every other generation has. Please, turn out and vote. Even if it's not for me, make your voice heard. Show up. If the young vote shows up, change will happen. But if you continue to let old people make the decisions, look where that's led us. Not to generalize and be ageist, but look where the old vote has led us. Look what that has done to this country. Look at the things that are going on. People work harder. Production is up, but pay is not. Benefits are not. If you end up in the hospital in this country, you are probably better off to die. Because if you didn't, the bills are going to kill you. Education costs an arm and a leg. Almost literally. I don't know what an arm and a leg sell for on the black market, but maybe if you cut both legs off and your left arm, you could get a degree. Yes, this is all criticisms of the otherwise great #1 country in the world. This country needs change. If we hope to ever proudly call ourselves #1, we have to prove it. And just saying it, that doesn't make it so. Now, I have gone off on a lot of rambles in this video, and that's because a lot of stuff gets me fired up. There's a lot of things in this country that really piss me off, and I want to see that change. And it drives me nuts that every time I talk about change, I get hit with the, oh no, you can't win. You're not a Democrat or a Republican. Pardon that rhyme. But I get tired of hearing how I can't do that. It can't be done. I thought America was the greatest country in the world and anybody could do anything and be anything. I can't be president, though. As far as can do, that's on the realistic spectrum of things. Do you know why? Because all it takes is support. But as long as people have that bad attitude where they're throwing their vote away if they vote for me, no, I won't win if that's the case. But that is exactly why I was calling on generations Y and Z. We are young enough to still have some semblance of hope, to still have faith that things can be different. We haven't been broken yet, especially Generation Z. They might never be broken, and thank God if they're not, because that would be exactly what this country needs. An entire generation of people who are like, no, we're done with this shit. We're not playing your game no more. Generations Y and Z, I absolutely need you. I need you instead of saying, he can't win. I need you if you have even the slightest semblance of faith that I want to see the best for this country. I need you to vote for me. And am I begging you to vote for me? To a small degree, yes, I kind of am. It seems that way, doesn't it? But I'm not begging you to vote for me. I'm begging you to vote for change. Whether I'm that change or not, I don't know. But even if I'm not, we need the change. We cannot continue to follow the same path and expect different results. That's insanity. We need to change. Generations Y, Generation Z, keep calling out to you. Because you, as the young vote, need to turn out. You are the hope for the future. You are the hope for this country. You are the only people that can decide where this country goes. And if we don't grab it now and take charge and become leaders, then we are everything the older generations say of us. We are all the bad stereotypes the older generations give if we can't even step up now and tell them it is our time. Their time is past. It's gone. It is our time to lead this country. We are the future. And we need to determine the future of this country because we cannot continue to let people who are so out of touch with what is going on in this country, we cannot let those people continue to lead because they will continue to make decisions that only line their pockets and make them and their friends richer. We need people who can look around and can say, this is screwed up and it needs to change. The average worker needs better pay, better benefits, needs to be treated like a human being. We need people who look around and say, we treat our veterans like shit and that is fucked up. We need to treat our veterans better. We need to take care of our children. We need to solve issues in this country that have gone ignored for years. We need leaders. And what we have right now are not leaders. They're filthy crooks, willing to line their own pockets and destroy a nation for their own benefits. And we need to do away with that. We need to vote those kinds of people out, and we need to put real leaders in their place. We need to put people who will see change and make change happen in there. We need people who want others to benefit more than themselves. We need people who aren't going to go in and try and make themselves rich. Somebody who will go in and in enriching the lives of others will have a better value to their own life, rather than lining their pockets and hoarding the wealth. We need people who are willing to go in and say, no, you're not doing whatever you want, big business. That's not the way this rolls. And a lot of people will scare you with, big government's scary. But look what happens when the government lets corporations just run things. Look what happens when they just hand out prizes like, yay, you won capitalism, have another tax break. Is complete government control bad? Absolutely. But sometimes this whole big government scare shit is just that shit. Sometimes the government needs to step in and tell a corporation, no, you can't do that way. You are infringing on your workers. You are treating them in ways that are inhumane. And yeah, we have it pretty good compared to some countries in the world. We have it good compared to workers in sweatshops. But not as good as we should for a first world nation. We still treat our workers like shit, and if you look at the way policies are headed and the direction it is, profit versus pay, if you look at the direction we're headed, it's not a good direction. We are headed the opposite direction of where we should. We are headed to the point where workers have no rights. We're headed to the point where you can just spit on your workers and to hell with them. And it might be slowly coming, but you remember what I said earlier? Little incremental things, they just sort of sneak up on you, and suddenly next thing you know, bam. Take a look at the past 20, 30, 40 years, how things have slowly progressed, how they've slowly changed. And this isn't just workers' rights. This is everything. Look around at everything in this country, how it has slowly changed. And how it has been, that's not so bad, that's not so bad, that's not so bad. Well, if you look, it's pretty fucking terrible. This country needs saving. Am I its savior? I hope so. Is that a little self-centered, pompous, prideful, choose your words about it, of me to say that? Yes, it absolutely is. But I don't see anybody else doing it. I don't see anybody else stepping up to plate saying, I want to save this country. I want to fix this country. So in that sense, if nobody else is willing to be America's hero, then I'll take on the mantle. Will I be a cocky little bastard about it? Right now in this moment, sure, let's go with that. But I think it needs saved. It needs heroes. And not heroes who wear capes and fly around and shoot lasers. It needs heroes who are willing to dedicate themselves to making the lives of every American better. It needs heroes who are willing not to line their pockets, but to line the pockets of others. And not others as in the rich, their wealthy friends. Others as in the working American. As in the poor, the middle class. It needs heroes who are willing to say, no, I'm not bowing down to you, corporation. I'm not taking your bribe. I'm not falling into that bullshit mess. I'm going to stand up to you. And even if it makes them the most powerful enemies in the world, I'm going to continue to tell you no. Because I want to fix things. And you might look at me and some of you go, wow, this guy's just crazy ranting. But you know, the thing that gets me the most, how are more of you not pissed off like this? How are more people just okay to sit back and watch this country degrade around them? How are more of you not as angry as I am? I might be sitting here on my couch shouting at a camera, which may or may not see people. This video, it might be like 15 people see it. Like all my other videos right now. But you know what? If that's 15 people that see it and 15 people that I'm shouting at, maybe the message chimes in with those 15. Maybe it already has. Or maybe they look at it and go, damn, this guy's crazy as shit. And if wanting change in this country is crazy, then call me insane. If being angry and fired up and shouting because everything is screwed up in your country and you want it to be different, if that's crazy, call me insane. If thinking anybody, one individual, any person can make a positive change if they try hard enough and pour themselves into it, if that's crazy, call me insane. But you know what? I would rather be insane, as you label it. I would rather be crazy, off my rocker, than just another person who follows suit and says nothing can be done. I would rather be called the Mad Hatter than just another sheep, so to speak. So, if you want change, if you really want to see good things happen to this country instead of us just fall into the same mess, vote for that change. Not just in the presidential elections, not just in the federal elections, state, local, every election. Vote for that change. Because even the small things make a difference. Those small things add up. How many times have I touched on it? Local stuff adds up. State stuff adds up. Federal stuff adds up. It all comes together. It all makes a difference. And if you let stuff go to shit in one aspect, it usually affects the others. Just vote. Now, real quick, before I wrap this video up, there's also Generation Alpha. They will not be old enough to vote in the next election. The next presidential election. Well, the next election even, like tomorrow. Tuesday, rather. But addressing you, when it does come your time, when you are old enough to vote, vote. Be that young vote I was talking about. In case Generation Z screws the pooch, in case my generation screws the pooch, like all the generations before us, be that change. So, to wrap this video up, I apologize for all the ranting, but like I said, there's a lot of things in this country that fire me up. I apologize for the swearing, but there's a lot of things in this country that fire me up. If my swearing and my yelling and it frightens you, then maybe you should take a look around this country, because it's not without just cause. Take a look around. And if you're not yelling and swearing, at least internally, then something's wrong with you. Because this country needs change. Please, every generation, vote for change. Vote for a future. Thank you for watching.